Welcome to A Seat at the Table, a podcast powered by The Ice House, a place for courageous conversations empowering diversity and community in business. You are part of the conversation and have as much to say as anyone else. Olivia Bollen, founder of Taken Care Of, a creative agency and concierge reimagining gifting, bridging the gap between empathy and care in business. Olivia started the business in 2017 and has recently announced a new era for Taken Care Of, moving from the modern and aesthetic gift box experiences. Today we are unpacking the relaunch of Taken Care Of and what led to this decision and how Olivia is doing. Thank you for being on A Seat at the Table, Olivia.
Thank you for having me. I am excited / nervous.
Love it. Well, I feel like I'm your friend. So
I agree.
Yes. So because of that, I went and I just threw out a bit of a script that we've had, and I want to start with this question. You're about to step into a new era of your business. Before we get into all of it, how are you doing?
Probably like the most calm and content I've been potentially since I was like a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think?
I have a good quote for this that's like kind of, I've said it to a few people in the last few weeks about where I'm at. And so, you know, Moustache Cookies, the
Yes.
founder Deanna, she closed her Christchurch shop. I don't know, it must have been a few months ago now. And I remember reading a blog post by her, and it was really fascinating about what success looks like in business these days and everything. And one thing that I really resonated with that she said was she felt like she was in a riptide and she was just swimming really hard against it all the time and drowning. And when you kind of accept whatever's happening and float and let the riptide kind of spit you out where it's supposed to spit you out, and then you start swimming, you end up with a lot more energy. And I think I'm just at the moment content with floating and, you know, swimming when I can and being just a bit more, probably less controlling. There's so many things you can't control. I'm just controlling myself.
That is such a good place to be.
Yeah.
Especially at the moment when there are so many unknowns. It's a very, very powerful place to be.
Yeah, and I think like if I've learned anything over the last 3 years is you really have no idea what's coming around the corner, and like COVID, we're currently in a recession, everything is just always up in the air, and you can only really control how you react to it versus what everyone else says or does. Yeah.
Love that.
Absolutely. For those listening and they're like, okay, what's her business? What's Taken Care Of? Can you give a quick, brief or, context to Taken Care Of, what the journey's been like so far?
So what we're most known for at the moment is, and what we've been doing for the last 6 years is kind of boutique, a bit luxury, curated gift boxes. So when we kind of got on the scene, there was, your cellophane and chutney baskets, like lots of companies that have been around for decades. You'd get the same thing, corporate gift every year, and throw out half of it. I was working at Spotify in Sydney and had a really cool job in sales there. And we did quite a lot of cool corporate gifting, and there were some companies in Sydney and Australia and the US doing some interesting things. And I just said to Mum, I think this is a space we could work really well in, and just kind of threw away the comment. She said, right, come home and we'll do it. And so we did, and the whole focus initially was basically on importing products. And then when COVID happened, we changed to focusing on New Zealand sustainable made, like really beautiful products. But yeah, that's probably what we're known for the most. But behind the scenes, we really work, and probably our bread and butter is working with corporate clients and curating custom gifting experiences that might be in a gift box or they might not be. So that's kind of the direction we're heading in at the moment. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
New era awaits. That's so interesting. You said I've been following your social media as you launch, well, for ages, but as as you launch the new era. But you mentioned you're very vulnerable and real about what it's been like over the last few years, working 5 a.m. to 11 p.m, 7 days a week at points, leading to a point of burnout. How does that season sit with you? Like, what does that bring up for you?
It's weird because it's like probably what I thought was success. And financially was when we were at our most successful. At the moment, like financially, we're probably at our, not completely the worst, but I mean, year one was obviously tough in a small business. But we're not, making $1 million. It's not some huge business anymore. But yeah, it was everything that I thought I was supposed to be doing, and that society and this whole girl boss hustle culture was kind of telling me that's what success looked like. I needed lots of staff. I needed a big warehouse. I needed 100,000 followers. That's what success was going to be. But the things that actually really made me happy and that I enjoyed doing were things that never got shared and weren't really that big, but they were important and made me feel great. So as strange as it is, I'm glad all of it has happened, and I'm glad I did that so that I can be in a situation now to know, actually, I've been there, I've done it, and I don't want that. I don't want that work ethic.
What did near to burnout look like for you? How did you know to go, okay, I've got to change something?
So for me, was probably we were one of those businesses where COVID was a good thing for us, as unfortunate as that is for a lot of businesses. We were absolutely on a roll. And then after COVID, it just kind of kept going. We got a massive warehouse in Barry's Point Road. We had 30 staff. It was humming. And at Christmas time, we got an enormous, the biggest order we've ever had, which was 3,000 gifts worth $250,000 for one order. With a corporate client. We had to hire a second warehouse, get a second lot of staff just to do this one order. And I was I've made it. I'm working with one of New Zealand's biggest companies. I'm working with their CEO on these gifts. I was just loving it. We got to the end of our Christmas season, did the order. It was they only inquired 4 weeks out from Christmas, which is insane. And
of course.
Got to the end of Christmas, and then I would normally let all the staff take at least 2 or 3 weeks off over Christmas and January because we were really quiet, and I would go in earlier and do any online orders. You'd be really random ad hoc ones or small Christmas orders. And I remember going into the office, and this place was my happy place. It was my little heaven. Everything was white. We had this beautiful rolling ladder that went across our stock. It was beautiful. It really was. And I went in there and was trying to pack boxes, and something that I love doing and I didn't often get to do anymore. And I just was crying the entire time, just bawling my eyes out, sitting in this office that was supposed to be this place I loved, just completely bawling my eyes out. And I had no idea why and what was going on. And I really, for probably the first and only time I've had in my life, felt like I was having a panic attack. And I was just sitting in the office, couldn't breathe. I rang my mum, who's my business partner, and said I don't know what to do. And she said, just leave, just lock it up. Email people and tell them you'll ship it next week. Don't worry about it. I went home and just was what is going on? I've made it. This is exactly what I wanted.
Wow.
I've made all the money that I wanted. I hit this big milestone that I had. I had the staff. I had everything. Why am I so upset? Why am I so unhappy?
Wow.
Yeah, that was kind of the kicker for me.
Huge. It takes
it takes a lot of strength to have that insight and also question what success looks like at that very low point. It's a very powerful place to be, although it didn't feel powerful at the time.
But I guess it's one of those moments that I look back on and I'm really happy it happened because it's changed my mindset. I think if I hadn't got right to that edge and kind of fallen off it, then I wouldn't have been able to change it. I would have just kept getting to that just before point where I often would, I'd be going really hard for a couple of months and then slam, hit the wall and need to take a week or two off, or I'd go on a trip or whatever it might be so that I could reset myself. But it's long term, that's just not sustainable. It's just not a good way to work.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Yeah, you can't just like, you know, every 3 months or whatever run away from everything and like bury your head in the sand. Like as much as like it's great. Yeah.
Oh, this is a great podcast for me, personally.
I was like, yes, you're speaking to me.
This is a real therapy session for me. So good.
From that moment of going, okay, something's wrong, like what was your next step from there?
So normally I'm a bit of like a runner. I think it's post-earthquake, so I'm a Christchurch person. And I came up to Auckland, I think I was year 12 after the earthquake. And I'm extremely decisive. Like, you know, mum and dad said you can go to boarding. I don't think maybe boarding school wasn't an option. They were moving their staff out of Christchurch to get away from the earthquakes and everything. They said you can do X, Y, Z. Literally within 2 days, I was up in Auckland at Dio. They had moved in with my godparents. I'm like extremely, you know, fast paced. And I also do, I think ever since the earthquake, am a bit of like a runner. If something happens, I'm like, right, like on to the next thing.
Oh, not running, not jogging.
No, like I'm like, I need to go somewhere to go and figure it out. And so for the first few years of the business, I would go overseas. And I always had like a trip planned that we would go to a gift fair, and then I would tag it into me doing, you know, something personal. I lived in Sweden, like I went to uni in Sweden, so I had lots of friends over in Europe. So I'd always just tag it in that way, and it made me think really clearly, and I really enjoy, you know, having that space to think. But it was still weird COVID times. The borders were, you know, opening and then shutting. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I can't leave because imagine if I get stuck over there and I've got staff. And the only thing I knew was I love Queenstown. I love being in the mountains and being in nature. I didn't want to touch my phone. I didn't want to talk to my partner at the time. I didn't want to hear from anybody. And I actually was listening to a podcast, weirdly nothing to do with business or wellness. It was to do with something really odd like possums. So I listened to a podcast called Ologies. Have you ever heard of it before? It's really cool. But she interviews like different kinds of ologists. So it'd be psychologists, meteorologists, whatever it might be. So you could listen to one that's like quite deep and meaningful, and then you can listen to one that's about possums or like rats or whatever. But you learn really weird tidbits. But this one was on like something strange like possums, and she was interviewing this guy and she was talking to him about other things in life, and he said something about a retreat, and I was like, a retreat? Maybe I should go on a retreat. And like, okay, I'm going to start Googling them. So I did. I just Googled retreat Queenstown, and the first one that came up was called Aroha out in Glenorchy.
I thought you might say that one. Yeah.
They also were during COVID, so there was no one there. They normally have heaps of Australians and Americans, and it's like you have to book a year out, but they had no one there. So I rang Paula, and she said, yep, we've got one in 4 days. And I said, cool, I'm coming. And she said, okay, right. And I went, and there was only, I think, 7 or 8 of us on the retreat when there's normally 25 or 30. And it just completely changed my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard it is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And I'm not a woo-woo person. Like, I don't think I'm super spiritual, but this was incredible. Like, I just didn't quite expect the results that it had and the ripple effect it's had into my life. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. If anyone, I mean, it's expensive. I kind of thought, who am I to do this? Like, why am I spending all this money on this? Like, this is insane. But I would pay 10 times over to have the results that it's had after. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And look at the universe. It was really like there for you 4 days after you listening to your possum podcast.
I know, how bizarre. Isn't it weird how things...
Weird how stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a really good thing though.
Yeah.
How did it change your life?
I was in a not great relationship, came home, ended things with that guy, which had a big effect as well on my mental health and what I was looking for. It also made me realise I wanted to move to Queenstown. I started the retreat saying, I've always said I want to end up having kids down here. I always wanted to be ending up there. And then, by day 2, I was going like, yeah, man, I really could live here. And it probably didn't help that majority of the people on the retreat were actually locals from Arrowtown or Queenstown, because they thought, oh, we'll do it while no one's here. And then, day 3, day 4, I'm thinking, I could really live here. And then by the end of the retreat, I was, Mum picked me up from the airport and we went to see a whole bunch of suppliers and everything in Queenstown, go see some wineries and everything. And she picked me up and she said, how was it? Like, you look amazing. Your eyes are so clear. You look really happy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to move to Queenstown in 3 weeks. She was like, okay.
She's done a runner.
She was like, this is excellent. And it's been like one of the best things. I mean, I thought it was going to be super detrimental for the business, but it actually has been what I needed.
Wow.
It's my happy place. And I realised I'm planning this life that I want to end up there, but I was establishing all of my roots and everything in Auckland, and it was going to be so much harder to uproot my life and move it later than move it now. Yeah.
Wow. That's so good. Gosh, you're packing in a lot. I love it.
Yes,
This is amazing. This is so good.
So
also,
good.
I'm talking too much. Just be like, oh, go.
No, that's what this is for.
It's
we want to hear
amazing,
your
Olivia.
story. It's
Yeah.
so good.
I am actually noticing this real shift in the word hustle and hustling, and a better way to put it, which I've noted down, reframing success.
Yeah.
What does success look like for you now, and how has that changed?
I think it's working with the right clients that actually resonate with what we do and have the same values as us, and that you have really meaningful connections with. I got a bit stuck kind of wanting to be everything to everyone, and losing a little bit of sight of our values, because we were just on this roll, and then we had all these huge overheads and we just needed to keep going and, do the things that they were telling us they wanted.
Yep.
And now, I've just spent the week basically going around some of our favourite clients that we always really loved working with, and sitting down with them and saying, hey, this is what we are looking at doing. What do you think? Do you like it? And we kind of want to spend the next year building it around you, rather than us trying to tell you what to do. That for me, those relationships are really important, and that who you're working with as a client, they fill your cup, you fill their cup. It's a right thing. It's not hard. You're on the same wavelength. And I think having a business that's designed around the lifestyle that I want to have, rather than me fitting into the lifestyle that it needs from me, is kind of something that I've changed my mind about.
And how do you balance the slowdown of hustle with real productivity?
Good question.
I think I've accepted that it's going to take time, and to build something sustainable and that's going to have healthy growth. That it is going to take time, and I'm kind of resigned to that fact and okay with it, rather than in the past I was always just so I needed it yesterday. Why aren't we 10 times bigger? But the problem in that comes growing pains and mistakes. And I think I'm only 27. I started it when I was 23. It must be, yeah. And I'm just like, it's okay. It's going to take as long as it takes, and I'm going to do it the right way this time. Yeah.
Even more mature people need to do the same thing as you. Yeah. They've got less time, but they definitely need to take more time to do what you've done.
Because it ends up weirdly, it costs you in the end anyway. You end up spending so much more. Like, I probably wasted a year on a big mistake that happened at work, fixing it. And if I'd taken the time to grow it sustainably and put a bit more care into it, and not try to run as hard, I think potentially it might not have happened, or we could have been a bit more agile.
And how did your clients respond when you went to them and sort of said, we're going to build this around you?
People are pretty amazing. And we have some and I've been very particular about the clients that we have talked to about it, and ones that I know have the same values that we do, and are open-minded and want something like this, it's not going to be the right fit for everyone, and I'm okay with that. I think I always used to try and be the fit myself into everyone's right package. Yeah, but so far the feedback's been like pretty amazing, and yeah, I think it's the right way to do it. I had a really good piece of advice from a business mentor, and he said, he rang me after we sent our email out, like we sent a big letter telling our customers, we're going to shut down our retail site and like thank you, and it's not lost on us what you've done for us the last 6 years. And he rang me and he said, are you showing just the retail part or the whole business? And I said, oh no, just the retail part. And he said, oh God, I'd prepared a whole speech to say, even though you don't have anything now, you're still like taking all these lessons with you. And like he had like this whole thing kind of ready to go. And I was like, no, it still applies. Like, thank you. And he was like, okay, right. Now I can tell you what I think you should do. And he said, it's funny, before I'd even told him the direction we were going in, he said, I think you should do X, Y, Z. And I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. And he said, I suppose it's a bit like a spa where you've got a list of services and, all of them involve lying on a table with some kind of like moisturizer. But he said they're packaged in a different way. And he said, instead of trying to figure out how to package it to your clients, you know what you do, they like the way you work with them, figure out your spa card with them instead of you trying to sell it to them first. Understand where they see the value, go to them first and build it around them, and don't try and have all the answers to begin with, which is so new for me because I'm normally like everything needs to be perfect. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's so cool. Can you give us a bit of insight into what the new era looks like and what the offerings are?
So I suppose we're changing from being like a margin-based business where, a client orders product, they might decide, we want gift boxes for Christmas or whatever it is. They come to us, we do the gift boxes, and then we make a margin on it. Instead, we're trying to jump in the process earlier with them and partner with them throughout the year. They pay more like a consultancy fee. And we sit down, what are your goals? What are your values? What are you trying to achieve this year? And how are you wanting particularly to make people feel, whether that be your clients or your team? And then we go and source products and experiences that basically reflect that sentiment. So it's not just a gift box anymore. It's really, that's why we want to work with the right clients that it fits in with.
So it goes a lot deeper.
Yeah. And like we're either creating products or researching for new things, whatever it might be, sourcing them specifically for you. And I think it's a lot of the time it ends up being like an EA, or even I had a meeting today with a law firm where it's the managing director for the last 10 years. He's had to think about all of the gifts, and he said, I waste so much time thinking just all day. And he said, I end up not doing my job. This is where we like absolutely thrive. So instead, all those man hours you're wasting for that person's time trying to come up with a concept, then present them to the board or whoever's approving it, and then you've got to go back and forth. We just really hone in on exactly what you're trying to say to that person and present it to you, and you can say yes or no rather than someone else in your company having to do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it's a bit of like a different model, and I think that's partly why I've decided I'm going to let this year be the time that we work really closely with a few clients and really build it around them so that we can get the messaging right, because I can't really find a blueprint for it. It's not really anything that's, even in the US, I can't really find anything that's exactly like this. I suppose a bit of a concierge service, a bit mixed in with a few other things. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's such a great idea. And I want to chat a bit later about that idea of empathy in business. What was that aha moment for the model specifically, especially if you haven't seen it elsewhere?
I had a really steep learning curve and it was extremely costly, both to the business as well as legal fees. But the one thing I would say about all of it is that I was so intertwined in the gift boxing part of the business, and I think it was my baby and it really was part of my identity. If it hadn't happened, I don't think I would have been able to step away from that side of it. I think I would have been quite stubborn and just kept going even though it might not have been working or even though we had other opportunities. I think if the situation hadn't happened, I would have just been stuck and not being able to move and go, actually, there's this whole other thing that we really are good at, and I can let that go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it's authenticity is such an overused word. I almost can't stand it. But by you going deeper with your clients, it means that they're being way more authentic with what they're giving to their team and also their clients, which is such an incredible place to be, especially now. Everybody needs a bit of joy in their life, but it is real joy.
Yeah.
It's not
and
surface stuff, and we can see right through that now.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't need to be, like wine and chocolate and whatever. And especially like one aspect we're like really hoping to lean into is conference gifting. And that's like an area that we've done a little bit in the past. And, you get your pen and your bag and your ugly notebook and, the research we've done on it is a huge majority of people either leave it on their seat or put it straight into the bin, which sustainability-wise, not great. And also that company's just spent often sometimes $20,000 to $40,000 on conference gifting. There's like definitely some creative things that can be done that really, the whole point of a conference is leaving someone with a feeling. What are you trying to communicate through your speakers, through like all of the activities you're doing, and you're giving them something physical anyway. Make sure that physical thing is a takeaway of your event. It's not just, some stuff you've thrown together or freebies that random suppliers have put together, often like conflicting against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
hallelujah.
Let's chat after this. That would be the dream. Just want to take a moment for Vicky though.
Oh,
yeah, your mum, isn't she?
She is amazing. I just genuinely could not do any of this without her. She is a pretty special woman. And I think a lot of like the empathy and care and being able to accept all of it is from her. Yeah.
Beautiful relationship.
What's it like working with your mum or being in business with your mum?
Yeah. We've only had one challenging time in 6 years. And if anything, it wasn't actually really anything to do with the business. It was to do with the guy I was dating at the time.
Wow.
And she hated him and a lot of other people did too. And they saw me change over a year and a half. And that's probably the only time we've ever really bashed heads, and it really had nothing to do with the company. It had everything to do with her just being upset and not wanting me to make a mistake. And I'm glad going to Araha and doing all of that, it was not just about the business, it was about my personal relationship too.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to see that. I really couldn't see the wood for the trees until I was in a situation where I was surrounded by trees.
And the key learning is mums are always right.
If anyone's listening and their mum hates their partner,
It's out the door.
It's 99%.
It honestly
that
is.
they're right. Yeah.
100%.
And it's so hard as well because your mum, hearing it from your mum, you're like, oh no, you don't tell me what to do. And if anything, you're probably thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to push me even closer to them. Because you're not allowed to do it. That's probably the only time we've had a wee hiccup, but we're very close. So it was hard. It was a really hard time for me not having our usual relationship.
Did you always think you'd work with her or go into business with her? Was that always the thing?
Well, Mum and Dad have a family business that they've owned for 30 years, and my brother and I are just starting to help, go on the board, have some directorship roles where we're supporting, but we're not in the day-to-day stuff. So we've always been an entrepreneurial family. And, they've always talked openly at the dinner table about business. Mum's had an amazing career. She had a, she had a really successful luxury travel agency back in the day, in the 90s.
Wow.
And sold that for a huge amount of money, and then moved down, then opened a hair salon chain in Australia and New Zealand.
Wow.
Then got out of that, and then ended up coming back to the family business with Dad. So I don't know if I ever thought that Mum and I would end up in a company. I think initially I always thought I wanted to work at like a Spotify, where I ended up working, and then I realized actually, no, I want to run my own thing. It's just kind of a bit in the blood.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how she said to you when you're like, oh, there's something here with this idea. She was like, cool, let's do it.
Oh, but she's like that, like with everything. You know, I asked her, what do you think about me going on this retreat? She said, 100% go tomorrow. She's like
awesome.
amazing in that way, super, super supportive. And when we actually did have a competitor inquire post all this situation happening with this employee, inquire about whether we'd be interested in selling in the future.
Wow.
And I, sat with him and I went, at that time I probably hated the business because all this stuff had happened and I was really upset and angry and I'd lost the love for it. And I thought, actually, you know what, this is a good opportunity. Maybe we should just rip the Band-Aid and sell it and get rid of it. And I'll just figure it out and get a real job or whatever. And Mum was the one that kind of said to me, you could totally do that like you don't have to convince anyone else. Everyone would understand, especially like the people who knew what happened. Everyone would completely understand. The only person you have to convince is yourself. And I was like, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And she was right again.
She was.
Vicky and her wisdom.
Yes.
I want to move gears a bit to this idea of the role of empathy in business. What role does empathy play in business? How can businesses do better in truly nurturing the connections and relationships they have?
I think often, especially now with wellness being like a buzzword and like companies and everything, and sustainability and everything else, I think sometimes it gets a little bit lost where, there's people sitting around a boardroom table saying, okay, we need to check these boxes of wellness and we need to check these sustainability boxes and everything. But they're not really putting themselves in the shoes of the employee, of the client, whatever it might be, and really sitting back and thinking, is this actually meaningful? Am I just doing this because I'm checking a box, or am I doing this because I genuinely care about what this is we're planning? I think that's the difference. There's quite a lot of like false empathy out there where it's feigned, like, oh yeah, we really care about our staff and we're doing all this, wellness, yada, 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 but they're not really practicing what they preach. I think it has to be really deeply part of your organisational culture. And if it's not, it has to be a considered and thought out plan of how you're going to introduce it. You can't just randomly throw in some yoga classes to your staff and all of a sudden everyone feels really happy again.
Couldn't agree with you more. How does that show up for you? How does that meaningful empathy and compassion show up for you? Rather than just throwing in a yoga class. I couldn't agree with you more. Because it really, that nothing annoys me more than going, the staff, I hate saying the staff, the team needs, to feel better about things. It's just,
let's do this one thing, that
yoga class or whatever. But really, it's deeper than that. It's the foundation. It's how you treat people.
100%. It's the relationships, and I think the thing that really is the whole purpose behind this is relationships, and what we're trying to do is. I think the lasting thing that people remember about any service, any product, any interaction, whatever it might be, even us sitting and having this conversation, is how you make people feel.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter about what it is how you make them feel. And that's going to help you with your staff retention. It's going to help you with your, client growth, everything. And it's going to help you find the right people that fit with that feeling as well.
How do you... Is there again a balance between showing that empathy and that compassion, balance with not being too friendly and people taking advantage? Is that a thing for you?
I think we've definitely been taken advantage of in the past by clients, but I've gotten to the point where I realised if it doesn't feel right and if it's too hard, not in terms of like too much work or that kind of too hard. I mean, too hard as in like you're just not, neither of you are getting it. You're speaking completely different languages. that's when it's time to call it quits. And for me, we've broken up with clients because they're not the right fit and they don't treat my staff the way I want them to be treated, and their values don't align with ours. And I think when you work with the right people, you don't get taken advantage of because they believe in the same things that you do.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's that magic, of doing business.
Yeah, and it just feels right. I think I'm definitely more like attuned to listening to my gut and thinking, instead of, I used to think and see the dollar sign and, and think, oh, wow, that's an enormous order. But in the end, it always ended up, when it wasn't right and my gut was kind of going, hey, like there's something not right here.
Yeah.
It always ended up costing me more money than it was worth. I think I'm just at the point where I'm giving myself enough space to listen to it. And going at a speed where I actually can listen to it and respect what I know deep down is right and wrong.
Nice. Just imagine you in 10 years' time. Watch out. So good.
Yeah, speaking of that, like what advice would you give your younger self starting the business again, or someone starting a business?
It was actually Carolyn who said to me one time, $1 million times zero is $0. So it doesn't matter if you're, making $1 million in sales, if your bottom line is not there and you're not, making a profit. Yeah. It really, you times that again by 100 million and you're still making $0. That's definitely something I think, like, especially people in creative industries. And I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday who's started her business at the same time I did. And we both have always, me not now, always hated the numbers side of things and like the legal side and like all of those kind of gritty things that creative people hate. And now I like just absolutely lean into it. And I want to get, because the other parts come so easy and I enjoy them, I don't have to spend as much time on the things that I don't like, for example, maths and legal.
Totally. Yeah. And it's cool you've leaned into like coaches like Carolyn and advice as well externally to be able to bounce these ideas off in this new era, right?
And I think like having other people from different industries. I mean, I can't remember who this new sales rep is at the Ice House.
Anthony?
Yeah, I think so. He rang me and he said, why are you one of the only people who has 2 coaches at the Ice House? You've got like Kevin and Carolyn. It's great because you get two different opinions, and I don't always do everything that everyone tells me to do, but hearing different ideas, that's, and you also want people who tell you, no, that's stupid, why are you doing it like that?
Why is he asking that question? Everybody should have 2 coaches.
Good call.
Everyone needs multiple opinions. And I'm lucky. I've got I would say, like, to anyone who's starting a business, I wish I'd done it earlier. It was probably COVID when I first got like Carolyn, and then started having, asking other people I knew personally or through business whether they would mentor me. Now I have a lot of people that I, turn to for different types of advice.
Great.
I think having people who have experience, they want to help you because they have already made the mistakes. And for me now, whenever anyone asks me advice, I'm happy to give it because I've been through it and I would want to help someone else not make the mistake that I did. And I've found that, 99.9% of people who you ask for help will say yes, they want to give it. Yeah.
For sure.
So good. What makes you happy nowadays?
Lots of things. I have a really lovely partner that makes me very happy, and he has a lovely family as well. And I think that's also part of it, the whole values aligning thing, both personally and professionally. I've never been in a situation where I felt so calm in a relationship, and that the situations that life inevitably throws at you, you're dealing with them as a team versus there being issues within that you feel like you're always kind of tackling stuff and there's always drama. I think I was in situations like that a lot, and now it's, us against or whatever the problems get thrown at us, which is really nice. That makes me super happy. Awesome. My sausage dog, Dot, love her. she's always been part of our like business. She's always on like our Instagram and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, like our taken care of followers helped us name her when we got her 4 years ago. Yeah,
so cool.
I love being out in nature. Like when summer comes, obviously not now. Like while it's still spring, but I jump in the lake every day in Queenstown. Actually quite a lot of things that I learned at Araha are things that I've continued to carry through. Yeah, journaling, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. What does your team look like now? What will it look like going into the future?
We only have one team member, well, there's me and Mum, and then we have one staff member who's our beautiful Miriam. She is an absolute firecracker. She's so funny. The first thing she asks anyone that she meets is, what star sign are you?
I haven't been asked that question in years.
She's so funny.
So good.
She's so funny. Actually, we were talking about it yesterday in like a meeting, and whenever we interview people, we always ask, you know, like the standard questions, but I always will randomly throw in like when they've said something serious, I'll ask, what kind of fruit would you be and why? And Miriam had the best answer. She was on a Zoom call because it was kind of like, I think, end of COVID times, and she said, oh my God, I have the perfect answer. I would be a cherry. And then she lifted her ankle up onto the Zoom call and she had a tattoo of a cherry on her ankle. And I just said, you don't even know to
You're hired.
You're hired. But it's actually quite a good thing to ask people, like to throw them off, because everyone, you know, they have their pre-prescribed answers.
Be yourself.
And I don't, everything you can learn, it doesn't really matter. Like everything you can learn on the job, and we're always hiring uni students and stuff. So it doesn't really matter what your skill set is. I care whether you're like quick on the beat, like funny, interesting, like is your personality going to fit? That's what's important. But she's an absolute firecracker.
Love that.
Yeah. So it's just Maz, and then we've got a beautiful girl, Freddie, who's worked for us a couple of years for like Christmas. She'll be coming on later in the year. It's funny, Miriam said, oh great, Maz is coming back, and Freddie's coming back, and she's a Libra too. And she was like, and you're a Libra and I'm a Libra, so it's all Libras running the office.
Damn it, that was my question. What was your star sign?
No, all three of us.
Libra.
She was like, well, now we can only hire Libra.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
What's so great about a Libra?
I don't know enough.
I mean, you have to ask Miriam.
Okay.
But no, I think our sign's like the scales. So you
balance things out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I want to touch, before we close up the convo, I want to touch on your incredible knack for building community. I feel like there's been such a community around taken care of. I don't really know what to say. I just want to say it's there, it's awesome. How do you think about that when you go into your new era, like continuing the community?
I think that's what I want to help other companies, and it's something we've been really good at doing, like internally with our staff. Like Carolyn always used to say, you're the only company that I've ever met where you've had like a wait list of people asking whether they could work for you.
Yeah,
we throw really good parties. Really good Christmas parties. But
they're iconic.
I think there's definitely some things that I would have done differently now, like that are like probably a bit more structured, but there's parts of like the way that we worked that I would hope lots of companies would do. You know, for example, if we had one team member who I won't like say names or anything, who had found out she had like polycystic ovaries and, you know, needed to go to doctor's appointments. All of this stuff was going on in her life. And I'm just so flexible, like whatever you need, like work shouldn't impact your personal life like that. That's a priority, is your health, your family. You know, we were making gift boxes. No one was going to die. We weren't, you know, performing some surgery. And if someone has to take a few days off, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. I think people need to be like a lot more considerate. And when you look after people like that, they look after you most of the time and in return. And I don't know, I think we just try and communicate that through like our Instagram, and have like always tried to include people in the story and like bring people on the journey and be open about whatever's going on, whether they've been like big successes or whatever they might be. I think I'm probably just now being a lot more honest about what the lows are as well as the highs. Yeah, and for a long time, like I'm a real perfectionist, and like I think if you go on our Instagram, you'll see like I'm quite OCD, and like everything's on brand colors, and like I would only wear brand colors, and like I was just very like uptight, and so scared to share like that I was wrong or that something didn't go well. But now I think I've just gone. Everyone has so much stuff going on in their lives, and this is all part of the human journey. Like all of it is, and you can't take any of it with you when you're gone. So you might as well be honest about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, so cool. It's really been quite special to see the evolution, you know, like I think we recorded a podcast maybe
3 years ago. 2
years ago. Yeah. And seeing just the headspace change, and I can just tell you're free. Yeah, you're quite free. You're yourself. You weren't not back then.
No,
like,
but I was like just a different version of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I was trying really, really hard to be that specific version.
Yeah.
And it's hard when it's not necessarily like. It's easy to do it like when you're, I guess, being that like boss, whatever thing you're trying to do, like hustle thing. When you don't have the energy to do it and you're feeling burnt out, then you feel really guilty, and then it's super depressing and upsetting, and you feel like there's something wrong with you. Now I'm just happy with whatever it is. Like I've just been way more accepting of myself and not trying to force myself into being this one version all the time.
Sucks a lot of energy trying to be somebody that you're not. I've fallen into that trap before, and it is an energy sucker.
Totally.
So you think that everybody wants to see another version of you, and it's like, well, no, there's a whole other side to me. And that's me. That's
and
me as whole, and then you
totally
can get your flow on.
and then you kind of feel like it's a bit like you're hiding parts of yourself.
Yeah. It's exhausting. So no wonder you nearly had burnout.
And I think just so many people are on that road, and you don't have to own your own business to be on that road either. Like a lot of people who work for companies, they're on that road as well. And I think finding the right company that has those values, that's just the key for us. And like Carolyn was such an enormous part to do with like our brand values and building that out, that it has meant we have that foundation to pivot on. I've realized, we're not just gift boxes, and it still is about empathy. The values are still the same. We're still like wanting people to feel the same way. It's just packaged in a different in different context.
Absolutely. Wow.
Powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. Last question. Can we wrap up with this one? Who's one person that you'd really like to thank? Someone that's been really influential in the journey?
Definitely has to be Vicky.
Yes.
Vicky.
The only other person I would have to say is probably my partner Mitch. He I'm trying to think how many months into dating we were. Probably only a few months in when this incident happened, and I don't think I'd be able to have done it without either of them. And he's just such an incredible person, and so positive. And I was quite a pessimist before I met him, and he's just kind of infiltrated me, and it's been amazing because he's just got such an amazing brain and a generosity that was different to mine. And I think a lot of the stuff that's happened, I just wouldn't have been able to deal without either of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah, you really need to have it goes back to those values. You need to have those people in those relationships. It's not about having heaps of people. It's about having the people that like really know you and that you're really honest with, and they know all the good and bad parts about you that can support you through the rough. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. So that hour flew by.
It's been an hour.
Yeah. Well, yeah, nearly an hour. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing so honestly about where you're at. So exciting about where Taken Care Of is going. I cannot wait to support and follow the journey. And you personally, you're such an incredible leader, and I know many people look up to you. You have great influence. So thanks for being very real.
Oh,
Such a wise soul. You are. You can.
my mum and my godmother, they always used to joke that when I was born, I had really wrinkly feet, apparently. And they both said she walked here. She's walked here like 100 times over.
Can tell. So good. Thank you so much.
Oh, no,
This is awesome.
Thanks, you both.
If you haven't already, check out season 1 to hear similar business and leadership stories empowering diversity and community. See you next month.